Coming up next, this is the headline. Minneapolis Teachers Union, quote, extremely proud of discriminatory policy. It's coming up next on the show. Email us, AskMatt at mattloganspeaks.com to get your question answered on the next episode of Ask Matt Anything. Welcome to the Matt Logan Show. Boy, this is a scary time.
Very scary time.
Let's dive in right to, this gentleman's name is Kendall Qualls. I'm pretty sure I have his name pronounced right, but you know me and names. He testified in front of the Minnesota Public Board of Education, if I'm saying that right. I don't know, something like that. But anyway, I'm going to post this link and everything on this episode. But he says, hi, my name is Kendall Qualls. I'm a resident of Minnesota, I'm pretty sure, or Medina, Minnesota, excuse me. I'm a Black American that started life in a broken family. My public academic experience included an all-Black inner-city elementary school of students and faculty. I also experienced a rural elementary school in Oklahoma as one of the last generations of students having to be bused to an all-white school. I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but he talks about evidence-based things for 50 years. It's pretty amazing to me that we're looking at headlines today in something like this. This is from Alpha News. And in this article, Craig, they call Alpha News a third-rate, off-brand Breitbart. And this is the vice president of the Minneapolis Teachers Union to Good Morning America.
That's some pretty strong words. Is it because the agency doesn't agree with his views? Or maybe it's awakening people to what's really going on and he disagrees with that and he's scared?
I think, MSM, mainstream media, is it's become pretty clear with all the phones that record everything and shows like this. We're just two guys that are working class. There's nothing like, there's no fame and fortune at the end of the rainbow. No. Excuse me, but the reality is that, I decided to do this show because of all the people that said, hey, we really appreciate the perspective of a normal working class person. I mean, even you have like Alpha News. Okay, so they're on the right side of the political aisle is what it would appear to be, according to certain people. What it looks like to me in some of the articles I've read, I didn't really know much about Alpha News until this came to my attention. I had heard of them, but I didn't know. What I see, though, is some fairly accurate reporting. I think that there's definitely some opinion thrown in on some of these things too, but it seems pretty obvious that they're more trying to shine a light on almost all sides of things. Mm-hmm. Is that fair to say?
I think so. And with any reporting in media, you have to take everything with a grain of salt and do your research.
Yeah.
And I think you and I are both good about that with the show, is looking at all sides of it and researching articles from both sides of the aisle, per se.
Yeah.
So,
and I've said this many times publicly. I'm going to say it again. I listen to podcasts on the right, on the left of the aisle, politically, all kinds of different things like that. So the information that I'm trying to seek out is not from one source, like Fox. I actually almost never watch Fox. Sometimes people send me things. I might watch a little bit of it. But the truth is yes, they're selling, right? They are selling. They need to. Right. They need to be in business. That's part of it. And so they're selling their product to a particular side of the aisle. I'm not interested in that. I'm also not interested in CNN. Interesting how they're cleaning house, though. Firing some of the people they've fired and all that is pretty wild. But the reality is I want to know really what's going on, what the best truth is out there. So I look at all those things. So you're absolutely right. Sounds like that's kind of what you do too.
Oh, definitely. I think everybody has tendencies to lean one way or another, but just because you have those tendencies doesn't mean you shut out opposing views. And, with an article like this from Alpha News, it's a perspective from someone that you're not going to see anywhere else. And that's why I like those kinds of articles. Because what this guy has to say, it's pretty important. It's firsthand experience. It's not a bunch of social justice warriors who think that they're doing the right thing.
And to be clear, Kendall is not associated with Alpha News.
No. What were you saying earlier? He was a candidate for governor?
Yes, correct. Off camera, I said that. Yep. He was a candidate for governor of Minnesota. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's not like he's an uneducated man.
No, for sure. He's very intelligent.
Yeah, in the article, he's very well spoken in it, and it's how can you deny the voice of somebody that's literally boots on the ground? He lived this.
Yes.
And he's arguing against what the Minneapolis school board is saying what's best for the students.
Because he was a student in that exact same situation.
Yes.
Isn't that crazy that I bet, I can't say this for sure, but seeing actually, let me throw this in there. At the end of this episode, I'm going to put in his video. He had a video that he sent, and with permission, I did reach out to him and asked his permission to talk about his Facebook post and his organization. I'm going to let him talk about his organization, what he does in the video, and provide the links and things like that as well. But what he's doing is he's trying to shine a light on what the reality is by lived experience.
Right.
And that's just a generation away. And they're doing the same thing that proved otherwise, like he says, with evidence. So here's what it is. The Minneapolis Teachers Union defended a policy that calls for the laying off of white teachers first. So if they lay off teachers, they're first. White teachers, they literally called it out as white teachers are going to be laid off first, saying it doesn't go far enough.
So they're picking people strictly by the color of their skin, not by their performance, not by their students' grades or test scores, but literally the color of their skin.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's scary. That brings us 50 years back.
Yeah.
Except it's the other side of the aisle.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
Like, it's, I talk to my parents and other people their age, and they're just like, what in the world happened here? This is just, they people I've talked to have said this is just pure insanity that they're doing these kinds of things. None of it's ever right. None of it's ever, I saw a post that said, this is kind of reparations. And it's like, you can't pay reparations to somebody that didn't do the thing to the person.
That the people that never suffered or caused other people to suffer.
Right.
It's generations away.
It is.
Generations ago. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. So it's so, I don't know. It's so interesting that they're trying to, this social justice warrior type stuff, like you mentioned earlier. It's so crazy to me to see that they're promoting this kind of thing in this supposed enlightened world, as they would even say.
Oh, they'll tell you.
Right. And so how is this social justice?
Right.
Is the question. And they won't answer that.
No.
Not with facts, with emotions.
Calling you names, calling you racist because you don't agree with their definition of racism.
Right. Constantly moving the goalpost on definitions. the way that this is played out, in my opinion, and the way I look at it from my chair is, it's based, right? Like, this is their base, and they're screaming and hollering, and they don't want to actually try and reach across and learn what other people's experiences are, even in the black community. Mm-hmm. I think Kendall would totally sit down and talk to this, vice president or whatever of the teachers union, and mm-hmm. this is my lived experience. This isn't right. just research,
right?
Which the research proves and shows his lived experience is accurate,
right? And how many other people are out there that don't have the voice that he does,
right? Which is kind of why we've decided to do the show, and you're a regular guest, is because this is something that's important. These mm-hmm. issues are important to shed light on it, because it doesn't affect the elite. It affects the working class people. Yep. These decisions affect the people that are out there in the daily grinds,
right?
That they don't have millions sitting around.
Right. And you can go down so many wormholes with this conversation, but, even locally, and our current school board, God forbid, I don't think they would have thoughts of doing anything like this extreme, but there's some things that are going on in our local schools that parents aren't happy about. In a town that's growing as fast as Rochester is, yet they're losing between 600 and 1,000 students a year for the past 2 or 3 years. People are pulling their kids out of the schools to either homeschool or private school or open enrollment to surrounding communities. If the school boards can't see that they're doing something wrong.
Let me give you an example of what they say. I can't remember the way they say it, but essentially capitalism will end up saying what works and what doesn't work, right?
Okay.
So, Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
The only movie, maybe not the only, but the one of few movies that isn't a bunch of woke, social justice warrior stuff. That there's mm-hmm. good, there's bad, and the good is going to go after the bad.
Old school.
Not just old school.
Old school, but 10 years ago. Old school, 3 years ago.
But truth school. Like there is good and there is bad.
Absolutely.
And when you have these kinds of, the attorney, this attorney James Dickey of the Upper Midwest Law Center this is a direct quote from Alpha News here. The contract language will lead to, quote, inevitable lawsuit.
Oh, absolutely.
And if the district refuses to back down, and so it's like, that's the truth. The truth is that the law language of this, it doesn't hold up.
No.
And that means that when you can't look at it from a factual basis, who is that helping? Nobody.
And how much money is the Minneapolis school district going to lose in that lawsuit?
Right.
Millions.
Yeah. And a bunch of good teachers.
Absolutely. That aren't going to come back.
No.
And I'm sure if it's to that point, I'm sure they'll just run the other direction and get into a better school district. The problem is that they're going to lose out on their seniority and their pensions and stuff like that.
Sure.
But
here, to kind of go a little bit off base, if we're worried about our seniority and pensions and some of these things in a society that clearly is not valuing some real human life, when you're talking about, this is segregation.
Right.
Directly.
Well, absolutely.
And if you're not fighting against that, you're definitely part of the problem, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and I don't disagree with that, and it probably wasn't the best verbiage. Hopefully most teachers aren't in it just for the retirement benefits. It's just sad that teachers that have probably been there for 10, 20, 30 years that are vested in those communities are essentially going to be kicked out because of the color of their skin.
Yeah, but the problem here is they better speak up. and they better start saying no to this kind of stuff. Because it doesn't end then. If you don't draw a line and say, look, this is bad, this is wrong, this is potentially evil, and we're not going to deal with this, period.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a bad deal. Not a good place to be here. Kendall also said, how did President Obama, Justice Clarence Thomas, and Condi Rice, Justice Alan Page, ever make it through school and achieve success in life? They did not graduate from historically black schools or colleges, and
it's proof in the pudding right there.
It's proof right there. The evidence just speaks against what they're trying to do in Minneapolis. Last words.
Wake up, smell the coffee. If you're not going to speak up now, and let your voice be heard, nothing's going to change.
There's you know who Captain Picard is?
It's a Star Trek reference.
It is.
Okay.
Patrick Stewart is Captain Picard. You know the actor Patrick Stewart, bald. He's famously bald.
Yep.
And I'm going to show my Trekkiness here. In First Contact, the movie, he said that the line, and I'm not going to say the line perfectly for sure, but he said the line must be drawn here. We can't keep falling back.
Right.
It needs to end right now.
Mm-hmm.
Too many people, like myself, have fallen back and said, that's not my fight, when really it is.
Yeah. And you see that in local elections of, well, why do those people care? They're not in the school district or they're not in town. Because that affects our daily lives. Even if we don't live there, we work there.
Absolutely.
And it affects everybody.
Yeah.
So you don't have to live in a community to be worried about it.
And we're in a society, I was talking to my daughter about this just last night. She was describing a few things, and I'm like, meritocracy. We are in a society that no longer fights for meritocracy. And so we don't do things based off of merit. We don't reward people based off of merit. In other words, what work they put in, what their performance is, and all of those things. That just doesn't exist anymore.
Nope. Everybody gets a trophy.
Everybody gets a trophy is right. So we're going to give you a trophy if you send us an email at AskMatt@MattLoganSpeaks.com. Get your question on the next episode of Ask Matt Anything. Stay tuned. Right next is the video of Kendall Quall's organization. Thanks for watching.
We need to talk.
We need to talk.
We need to talk
about race, identity, and privilege.
To have a real conversation about Black lives in America.
And be honest about who is taking advantage of us and keeping us divided.
To be Black in America today is to be labeled and used.
But it's not because America is a systemically racist country.
It is not.
It is not.
It's not.
It's because the loudest voices who say they have all the answers are actually the problem.
There are progressive forces and organizations dividing us as a people and as a country.
They stoke hatred and division
to hide the real problems
and keep us angry.
We've seen this pattern repeat itself over and over again.
We have to take a new course.
And now's the time to return to our cultural roots of faith, family, and education.
Over half of Black students in Minneapolis public schools are failing.
But Black students in the same neighborhoods who attend private faith-based schools perform above national averages.
Every parent should have the choice and the right to send their child to a safe and excellent school.
And today, nearly 80% of Black children in the Twin Cities live day to day without their father.
That's 4 out of every 5. But it didn't used to be this way.
As recently as the 1970s, 75% of Black children lived in 2-parent families.
Having a mom
and a dad
in the home is the quickest way to reduce poverty and gain equality.
Finally,
every American is endowed with God-given rights, and those rights create opportunities.
We will succeed when we return to our faith in God
and the core principles of our nation.
You see, there is a difference between being woke and being awakened.
There's a new movement growing in America
to restore the institution of the Black family
and secure our full rights and privileges as Americans.
We invite you to join us.
We invite you to join us.
We invite you to join us.
And take charge of our culture
and our future.